Guess what? Today, we are going to start one of my favorite units of language arts. Are you ready? You're curious about what it is, aren't you? I'll give you a clue. It's used by writers in text for the sake of dramatic effect and also for the sake of comparison. What am I talking about?
Figurative language and poetry.
Woo, woo, woo. Miss Quinn, what is figurative language and poetry? I will show you.
He was as cool as a cucumber. He was a walking encyclopedia. The road was a ribbon wrapped through the desert. The earth hath swallowed all my hopes. They say money talks, but mine just waves goodbye. Demonic dynamo delivers death-defying dance to a damsel in distress. Woo! Try saying that 3 times fast. My feet are killing me.
There are 6 types of figurative language and poetry that we're going to talk about today. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's it. Are you ready? Let's go.
Type of figurative language number 1.
Simile.
Now, what is a simile? A simile is a comparison of 2 unlike things using like, as, or than.
Okay, so here are some examples of similes. The first one, Enrique ran as quickly as a cheetah during the race. So we're comparing Enrique to a cheetah. The second example is food, Chris inquired, popping out of his seat like a toaster strudel. What are we comparing here? What are the 2 unlike things? Anyone? Oh, you're right, Jonas. We are comparing Chris to the toaster strudel. He pops out of his seat like a toaster strudel. Okay, what about the third example? The clouds were like ice cream castles in the sky. What are our 2 unlike things that are being compared in the third example? Sophie? Yeah, you're right. The clouds are being compared to ice cream castles. All right, example number 2.
Metaphor. What is a metaphor? A metaphor is a comparison between 2 unlike things, like a simile, but this time without using like, as, or than.
Here are our examples. Number 1, David is a worm for what he did to Sheila. So what are we comparing? What are the 2 unlike things in example number 1? David and the worm. Okay, what about example number 2? Justin Bieber's tears were a river flowing down his cheeks. Oh, poor Justin. So what are our 2 unlike things in this metaphor? I think it's Justin Bieber's tears being compared to a river.
Example number 3. Personification. Giving non-human objects human qualities. Let's look at some examples.
All right, here we have 2 examples of personification. The first one says, "The sun winked at me through the clouds." Now, does the sun actually wink? No, but in this poem, we're giving the sun a trait that is typically found in people, winking. In the second example, we have the student's chair groaned under the weight of the teacher when she sat down in it. We're using personification in this example too, by saying that the chair groaned. So we're using a trait found in people to create dramatic effect. Example number 4 of figurative language is alliteration. What is alliteration? Alliteration is repeating the same beginning sound in more than 2 words. Here are a couple of examples of alliteration. There is nothing but death in the desert during the day. So we are repeating that same beginning sound with the letter D. Nothing but death in the desert during the day. Our second example, she should share her sherbet with her sister. So the same idea, we are using the same beginning sound of sh to create alliteration. Example number 5 of figurative language is hyperbole. What is hyperbole? Hyperbole is an obvious exaggeration. Here we have 2 examples of hyperbole. The first one is, I can smell pizza from a mile away. Now, can we really smell pizza from a mile away? No. That is an obvious exaggeration. Our second example, I'd move mountains for her. Ah, they must be in love. So can we really move mountains? No. That as well is an obvious exaggeration. Both examples of hyperbole. Okay, our last example of figurative language today is onomatopoeia. Look at the spelling on that one. All right, what is onomatopoeia? Onomatopoeia means words that sound like the object or actions that they refer to. Here are our examples of onomatopoeia. I was awoken with a start, with a loud bleep of my alarm clock. So using the word bleep in this sentence is an example of onomatopoeia, because it is a word that sounds like the object, which is the alarm clock. Our second example, the steaks sizzled on the barbecue. So using the word sizzled, we are showing onomatopoeia. Our third example, tisk, tisk, tisk. You really shouldn't be eating in class. Okay, now that you guys have gotten a taste of figurative language and poetry, how about we look at a poem? The one that I am going to show you today is called Oranges, and it is by a poet by the name of Gary Soto, who is an American poet who has written many books and poems for children and young adults, and also some for adults as well. So let's take a closer look. Okay, so here's the poem Oranges by Gary Soto. Can I have a volunteer who would like to read the poem aloud for the class? Awesome, thanks Enrique. The first time I walked with a girl, I was 12, cold and weighted down, with 2 oranges in my jacket. December, frost cracking. Beneath my steps, my breath, before me, then gone. As I walked towards her house, the one whose porch light burned yellow, night and day in any weather. A dog barked at me until she came out pulling at her gloves, face bright with rouge. I smiled, touched her shoulder, and led her down the street, across a used car lot and a line of newly planted trees, until we were breathing before a drugstore. We entered, the tiny bell bringing a saleslady down a narrow aisle of goods. I turned to the candles, tiered like bleachers, and asked what she wanted. Light in her eyes, a smile, starting at the corners of her mouth. I fingered a nickel in my pocket, and when she lifted a chocolate that cost a dime, I didn't say anything. I took the nickel from my pocket, then an orange, and set them quietly on the counter. When I looked up, the lady's eyes met mine and held them,
knowing very well what it was all about. Outside, a few cars hissing past, fog hanging like old coats between the trees. I took my girl's hand in mine for 2 blocks, then released it to let her unwrap the chocolate. I peeled my orange that was so bright against the gray of December, that from some distance, someone might have thought I was making a fire in my hands.
Okay, I hope you guys enjoyed that poem, Oranges by Gary Soto. Now, as you can see, I've highlighted certain lines or parts of the poem. What I want you to do is take a minute or 2 right now, look at those lines that I've highlighted to help you out, and try and think about which types of figurative language of the 6 we just talked about might be hidden within this poem. All right, take a minute. All right, class. So, who can give me some answers here? What did you find in this poem? Were there any examples of figurative language that you found within these lines? Huh? Class discussion ensues. Okay, class, now that we have gone through a poem and we've talked about some examples of figurative language, what I'm going to do for you now is give you this handy chart that has an example and definition of each of the 6 types of figurative language that we talked about today. Now, for homework, what you're going to do is come up with 6 of your own examples. All right, good luck. Have fun. Good job today, and see you next time. Bye, guys.